Welcome to The Journey.
Chapter 8 Law of Forgiveness. Jesus taught bigness of character to his followers. He was a teacher supreme. He not only pointed the way, but he went forward and showed the way. In the hours of great stress, he showed himself mightier than Pilate, Caiaphas, the high priest, and head of the church, and all of the scribes and Pharisees. For a moment, they had power over his body and tried him and condemned him to be crucified, the maximum sentence that could be given anyone. They dragged him through the streets, bound as a prisoner. They nailed him to a cross on Calvary Hill. But he looked down on them, and seeing their smallness of mind, he cried out, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." A man who is great enough to forgive is always greater than the forgiven. He is greater than his adversary. Peter raised the question, turning to Jesus and asking, "Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Until 7 times?" Jesus answered, "I say unto thee, until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. The quality of forgiveness must be as limitless as faith, hope, and love. When a man sins, we have been taught to think that this was a job for the minister, and so he is called to pray for the sinner. When a man becomes sick and distressed in his mind and body from the effects of the sins he committed, we call for a doctor. This, at best, we know is a temporary measure, for no real healing or permanent cure can be effected until the doctor and the minister work together. Jesus was the master physician in that he dealt with sin and sickness jointly. Jesus plainly taught that if ye forgive sin, the effect of such an act of forgiveness would become absorbed with natural and healthy ideas, much the same as the blackest of night is absorbed by the dawn of light. When healthy and natural ideals fill the mind, the body takes on a like condition. Jesus also taught that the originating place of every act was in the mind. In another place, he speaks of the origin of sin being in the mind first before the act is committed. He said, "Out of the heart of man proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, murders, thefts, deceit, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within, and they defile the man." Scientists accept the truth that the body of man is moved by the mind and that all its functioning is governed by a ruling thought, whether it is conscious or unconscious. Those who study the mental process find that all the conditions of the body are created or caused by the mind. Creation in any and every form is governed by the mind and subject to the law. Therefore, when one misused, inverts, or violates the law, this mistake is called sin. A sin is a mistake, a misunderstanding, and a misjudgment. A mistake is falling short of or disobeying the law. Correction is the only method of appeasing the law. Repentance and forgiveness are the only means available to alter and correct the mistake. They are the only means of liberating man from his suffering the painful consequences of a mistake. Forgiveness of sin means that we must forgive, forsake, and forget that thought, person, or condition that prompted the sin. It means to abandon or let go of the thing you ought not to do. To abandon or release the wrong thought or idea is to be absolved and liberated from its sinful effects. Forgiveness is the first requirement that permits a man to be in harmony with the law of his being. Anyone who studies man as both a mental and physical being would go deeper and search for the causes of sin and will find some harbored, hidden, and forgotten shock or condition that has caused the illness. Then, unless this harbored thought is uprooted from the subconscious mind or memory, this condition will continue to appear again and again, despite all the surface remedies that may be applied to arrest the pain. A noted physician, talking before a group of other medical men about this very subject of thought being the source of disease, said, "Abnormal tumors and cancers are due to a long period of suppressed grief and anxiety. Another way of saying this is that disease is due to a lot of sinful thoughts getting bottled up and suppressed within our minds. If this state is so destroying to our health, it might be wise to probe into our mind and note the effect our emotions are having on our physical health. Then we should seek to overcome, abandon, and forsake every emotional tug that is having a debilitating and disturbing effect upon us." Another leading psychiatrist said, "Most of the mental disorders are due to a sense of guilt. There are some harbored and congested thoughts that need forgiveness. Usually, a sick mind fears to release them or to forgive them. This is natural because to release and forgive the fearful thoughts, they would no longer be sick-minded." Professor Gates of the Psychological Laboratory of Washington, D.C. said, "Of all bad emotions, guilt is the worst. When harboring negative emotions, our bodies produce acid. The acid will burn the flesh, and if allowed, will destroy the tissue and the organism. This very chemical reaction destroys the body when destroying thoughts are allowed to fester within our mind." A physician had a patient who had visited many doctors and hospitals for a medical condition. The patient had a serious condition of melancholia with suicidal tendencies. The doctor questioned this man and eventually learned the cause of his illness. The patient had a brother, and they were in business together as partners. The patient had appropriated and lost some money that belonged to his brother. The money was taken in such a way that the other brother never found out that the monies had been taken. Eventually, the brothers retired and closed the business. The brother that had misappropriated the funds could never forgive himself for his misdeeds. There was no way that his brother could return the money without the other brother learning the truth. The two brothers were very close, and the one brother thought that if his brother were to become aware of his misdeed, it would ruin their relationship. The physician explained that the thing to do was to relieve the hidden pressure by telling his brother of his misdeeds. The patient was afraid that his admission of wrongdoings would cause a rift between him and his brother. The man was very afraid and would not consent to this treatment. 3 days passed with foreboding and sleeplessness. He finally told his brother the story, and to his surprise, his brother threw his arms around him and rejoiced with him that the matter had been discussed and resolved. The problem was cleared from his mind. The skies were clear again, and the restoration of his health was miraculous. Through repentance and forgiveness, the man was able to do as Jesus had commanded to the woman he was called to judge. "Go thy way and sin no more," The rooted sorrow had been plucked from its memory. His mind was free to think of healthy, happy, and joyful thoughts. This allowed his body to be healed. We can now understand more fully why Jesus so often spoke of forgiving sin. He knew the law of forgiveness, and he knew how vitally important a part it played in the life of every man. Weeds do not remove themselves. If not removed, they will increase and grow stronger until they choke out the flower. The same thing is true of our sinful thoughts. In the garden of our mind, they must be pulled out by the root so that only flowers of healthy and happy thought may grow. A man had the habit of excessive drinking, and being very miserable, he caused much unhappiness in his home. He decided that he wanted to quit drinking but found that he could not stop. Many times he rose to the top only to fall back into the bottom. Finally, he reached the place where he no longer had the craving for liquor, and then he was able to reject the desire for drink and overcome its sinful effects. When man overcomes the ideal that prompts him to drink, then and not until then does the law forgive and lift him from its debilitating effects. A sin forsaken is a sin forgiven when the thought or ideal that prompts the sin is corrected. Jesus explains that every man, when he conceives an ideal that is wrong, destructive, or evil and dwells on it, eventually causes it to become a fact in his life. When he wishes to overcome a sinful condition, he doesn't waste time wrestling with the fact, but corrects, forsakes, forgets, and forgives the ideal that started it. This is the weed that must be pulled out at the root. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. As we forgive those who trespass against us, we shall be forgiven of our transgressions. The law reads that certain ideas must be dissolved and cleared from the mind so that other ideals and new ideals of a different character may replace them. For example, if you hold in your mind that someone has wronged you or has treated you unjustly, you cannot be free from your wrongdoings or injustice so long as you hold that thought in your consciousness. Often people complain that they do not understand clearly or get the illumination of spirit as others have testified. You need only to search your memory to find the cause. If you do not get the understanding you expect, first search your mind for lurking, unforgiving thoughts that have been tucked away from your notice. Are your thoughts filled with resentment that you may hold against some person or condition? The law reads, "If ye forgive not their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." We make the conditions for ourselves as we meet the demands of the law. Some people ask if we believe in canceling the monetary obligations of those who owe us. So long as we believe in debts, we shall get into debt and continue to collect all the burdens and headaches that come with them. If we send receipted bills to all who owe us, would that relieve us from the burden of debt? No. The signing of the receipts does not erase the idea of debt from our minds. First, we must erase from our minds the thought that anyone can owe us anything. This then will bring us into a clear atmosphere in which we sow seeds or ideas of abundance for those who are indebted to us. In this way, the debtors will find their minds more fertile soil to bring forth thoughts of abundance. When we free our minds from all thoughts of debt and try to realize more and more the presence of plenty, we shall soon be strong enough to reach out and realize abundance for our debtors. As they are lifted up from the thoughts of limitation and lack, they will attract more and more substance with which they can pay their bills. In this way, and only in this way, can debts be permanently canceled. Through applying the law of forgiveness, both parties concerned will be lifted from a debt consciousness into a prosperous consciousness, and prosperity and plenty shall abound. We must learn to live by this law. This concludes another chapter of Universal Law. Hey folks, if you're getting any type of results from these videos that you're watching, subscribe to my channel and share my channel with a friend. I can tell you from my personal experience, if you incorporate this information as a lifestyle, the success that you are seeking will start to slowly materialize in your life. In the meantime, you have a good day, unless you've made plans to have a bad day.